You may have noticed that most people don't fail because they lack talent, but because they lack the courage to face their own minds. That's why this audiobook begins with an uncomfortable truth. Your greatest enemy has never been the world out there. It has always been you. And this idea, as harsh as it sounds, is liberating. Because when you understand that everything starts inside, you finally discover where the power truly is, the power no one can take from you. Musashi discovered this centuries ago, and it is exactly this path you are about to follow. We live in a time where people are strong in speech but fragile in practice. They search for shortcuts, quick formulas, and temporary motivation, and still remain stuck in the same patterns as always. What Musashi teaches goes in the opposite direction. He shows that real evolution is born from discomfort, solitude, and silent discipline. And this sounds almost offensive in a world that glorifies ease. But that's exactly where the difference lies between those who grow and those who repeat the same mistakes. And maybe you don't realize it yet, but there is a reason why you feel stuck, tired, stagnant, or divided between who you are and who you want to be. It's because your mind is fragmented, distracted, anxious, confused. Musashi would call this living without a center. Here, you will learn how to recover that center, how to silence the noise, how to train the mind like a warrior trains a blade. And when that happens, you will feel the first shift, the beginning of your identity shift. This audiobook won't give you pretty phrases. It will give you tools. Tools to master fear, cut distractions, strengthen focus, face truths, adjust habits, and shape yourself with the precision of a blacksmith forging steel. You won't just hear about self-mastery. You will practice it. And with each page, each insight, each deep reflection, you will notice life becoming clearer, lighter, and more intentional. And before you move on, here's a warning. This path requires courage. Not physical courage, but mental courage. The courage to look inside, to admit weaknesses, to abandon old versions of yourself, and build a new identity with your own hands. But if you take the first step, even insecure, even doubtful, you'll already be ahead of 99% of people who never dare to face themselves. Musashi would say that this is the moment when the warrior awakens. So take a deep breath, leave the outside world for a few minutes, and step into this path with an open spirit. You're about to learn a philosophy so powerful it can spark real changes in your career, your habits, your self-esteem, your relationships, and your future. Welcome to the path of self-mastery. Welcome to the Musashi way. Now, let's begin shaping the warrior within you. He always said that the way someone trains is the way they live. And it wasn't some cheap metaphor. When Musashi said this, he pointed to something we now call self-mastery. That quiet dominance you build when no one is watching. It's like waking up early to train, even without an audience, because your word means more than your mood. It's in this type of routine that the warrior mindset begins to form, almost without you noticing. And the more you repeat, the more your body learns that discipline is non-negotiable. Musashi understood that training was, in truth, a mirror of one's own identity. When you commit to a daily practice, even a simple one, you reinforce your identity shift. It's not, I am disciplined because I want to be, but I am disciplined because I act like a disciplined person every single day. This difference transforms ordinary people into stronger versions of themselves. It's the same principle used by someone who studies 30 minutes a day, even when tired. Consistency becomes character. He also knew that training wasn't about defeating others. It was about defeating the lazy version of yourself living inside your mind. And overcoming that inner battle requires mental toughness. When you understand that every repetition, every small practice, is a vote in favor of your evolution, everything changes. Suddenly, simple tasks like reading 5 pages a day stop being nonsense and become weapons for growth. Life becomes more strategic, almost like your own private dojo. Musashi never waited for motivation. He trained because training was the path itself. This is the essence of inner discipline, doing what needs to be done even when there is no applause, energy, or desire. A modern example? Someone who chooses to walk 20 minutes every day, even in the rain. The training is not about the walk. It's about who they are becoming. It's about shaping the mind the way a blacksmith shapes steel. He understood that repetition was not punishment, it was refinement. Training daily is like sharpening a blade. Each motion removes a fragment of your old self. This slow shaping process creates resilience that no book can sell, only experience can give. And the more you practice, the more you realize that the warrior mindset is not born from grand battles, but from small daily commitments. That's where real strength emerges. Continuous training also produces clarity that few people ever experience. Suddenly, you begin to see patterns, notice distractions, and recognize dangerous shortcuts you once ignored. This lucidity is the product of both practice and presence. It's like someone who meditates for 5 minutes a day and slowly becomes less reactive and more intentional. That's self-mastery appearing in its most subtle form. Musashi saw training as preparation for the unexpected. He said that those who train daily are never caught off guard. Today, this applies to everything: a difficult conversation, a sudden change at work, an emotional shock. When you train your mind, your body, and your emotions, you stop being controlled by chaos. You start acting with steadiness, like someone who has endured storms, even under clear skies. He knew training didn't end when the session ended. The way you organize your desk, respond to an uncomfortable message, handle your duties, all of this is training. The world becomes a giant dojo, and every gesture reveals who you are becoming. Small actions like studying 10 more minutes or cleaning up even when tired reinforce your inner discipline in ways you don't even notice. Daily training activates an internal transformation that many ignore. Slowly, without announcing anything, you begin behaving like someone stronger, calmer, and more conscious. This identity shift doesn't happen overnight, but grows with each micro-choice. And here's the curious part: the simpler the training, the deeper the transformation. Reading just 1 page a day can eventually turn into entire books. For Musashi, training was not preparation for life, it was life. And when someone understands that, everything changes. Work feels lighter, routines make sense, choices become firm. Each action becomes part of your personal dojo. And it is precisely here that the bridge to something deeper appears: discipline above comfort, the next step in this journey. Musashi understood that too much comfort weakens the spirit, and this is even more true for anyone seeking self-mastery. He rejected distractions because he knew every small indulgence can become an invisible chain. Today, those chains appear as hours lost on the phone, endless notifications, and that urge to rest a little more. The problem is that comfort numbs. Discipline, on the other hand, awakens. It is what creates the kind of warrior mindset that sustains deep transformation. When Musashi said, "Do nothing that is of no use," he wasn't talking about living a joyless life, but about living a life with intention. It's different to watch a random episode than to study something that strengthens your identity shift. It's different to eat anything than to cook something that makes you stronger and more alive. Small choices build big paths. Today, for example, someone who trades 20 minutes of social media for 20 pages of a good book is already rewriting their fate. Discipline is not a prison, it's liberation. Musashi knew that those who master their own body and mind become free to choose what they truly want. This is inner discipline in practice. Saying no to a small pleasure now, so you can say yes to something greater later. It's the student who refuses constant outings to save money for a course that will change their career. It's the amateur athlete who trains even when exhausted because they know victory is built in silence. And here's a powerful detail: discipline grows the more you practice it. The more you exercise it, the more natural it becomes, almost instinctive. Musashi understood this clearly. When someone chooses voluntary discomfort, cold showers, early training, reading even when tired, saving money when they want to spend, something inside them changes. That core of mental toughness begins to solidify like steel being tempered. Musashi also knew that discipline protects you from emotional weakness. Those who live reacting to comfort end up reacting to everything. Those who train their mind to endure discomfort start choosing with clarity. It's like someone who decides to work in silence for a full hour without checking their phone. Suddenly, they realize focus becomes a weapon. This ability to stay firm, even when the body wants to stop, is what separates dreamers from achievers. The truth is that comfort creates illusions. It makes everything seem fine when, in reality, you're stagnating. Discipline does the opposite. It reveals what needs to change. This is why Musashi rejected distractions. They steal energy, vision, and presence. Today, someone who puts their phone on airplane mode while studying is practicing exactly what Musashi preached: the courage to face their own inner emptiness. And it's in that emptiness that the warrior mindset grows. Discipline is also about choosing priorities. Musashi didn't waste time on anything that didn't strengthen his mind, spirit, or path. In modern life, this means choosing between watching 3 hours of random videos or investing that time into learning real skills. Programming, writing, English, sales, all of these build something. When a person chooses these, they reinforce their identity shift, not just thinking differently, but acting differently. There's also the emotional aspect. Musashi knew that those who cling to comfort become fragile in the face of difficulties. He trained to endure cold, hunger, solitude, not out of masochism, but preparation. Today, this may look as simple as waking up at the right time despite laziness, finishing a workout despite fatigue, or keeping your word even when no one would know if you failed. Life starts respecting you when you respect yourself. And perhaps the greatest lesson is this: immediate comfort is expensive. Voluntary discomfort pays high dividends. Musashi lived with the bare minimum because he knew that the more things you depend on, the weaker you become. Today, choosing to reduce distractions is already a form of spiritual training. Silence notifications, reduce stimuli, observe more. What looks small transforms your relationship with focus and productivity, and strengthens your inner discipline. In the end, Musashi wasn't seeking suffering. He was seeking clarity. He knew that when someone embraces discomfort, they discover a hidden strength within themselves. And this strength will be essential for the next part of the journey, because all discipline must eventually meet something deeper: courage. The mental courage to face fear head-on, just as he taught. And that leads directly into the next topic. Musashi understood that the greatest prison of a human being is not external circumstances, but the internal fear no one sees. He said that when a person accepts the possibility of death, everything that once seemed frightening loses its power. Today, this means accepting the possibility of failure, rejection, or discomfort, and moving forward anyway. This is the heart of mental toughness. When you stop running away, you finally start acting for real. Fear distorts reality. It creates monsters that exist only in the mind. Musashi knew this. He trained to look fear in the face without trembling, because he understood that courage is not the absence of fear. It is walking while feeling it. Today, this can be as simple as sending that resume, initiating a difficult conversation, or trying something new. The act of acting, even while insecure, strengthens your inner discipline more than any theory. He also knew that the human mind exaggerates everything it doesn't understand. Therefore, his constant practice made him hungry for challenges. Every unknown situation made Musashi approach fear with curiosity rather than panic. It is like someone speaking in public for the first time. The hands shake, the voice cracks, but after that first attempt, the giant shrinks. This process builds a warrior mindset that does not bow to fleeting emotions. For Musashi, fear was also a teacher. It showed where a person still lacked mastery over themselves. When you fear saying no, fear trying something new, fear disappointing others, that's exactly where your growth is stuck. Facing that fear, even with small steps, triggers real identity shift. For example, saying no once to something that drains your energy already changes your perception of personal power. Musashi trained with the awareness that life will always bring unexpected moments. He knew that an unprepared mind collapses under the first pressure. Today, this happens when someone loses a job, ends a relationship, or fails a project and completely breaks down. But the person who works on their inner strength daily reacts differently. They breathe, analyze, adjust, and continue. This resilience is the backbone of self-mastery. A powerful detail. Fear shrinks when you approach it. When you avoid it, it grows. When you face it, it weakens. Musashi applied this by entering real battles, studying the enemy up close to neutralize terror. In modern life, this can be done by studying the problem before acting. Reading a book, seeking mentorship, understanding the terrain. Information reduces anxiety. Clarity generates courage. That is mental toughness in action. Fear can also be used as a compass. Musashi noticed that what scared him the most was often what strengthened him the most. Today, this applies to everyone. Starting a business, ending cycles, changing careers, taking on bigger responsibilities. The path that scares you most is usually the one that expands your life. And when you walk that path, you activate a rare level of inner discipline, the kind few have, but many admire. He also understood that emotional fear is harder than physical fear. The fear of disappointing others, of not being accepted, of failing publicly. These fears shape entire personalities. Musashi cut these ties because he knew that depending on others' approval is handing your sword to the enemy. The person who acts without seeking validation activates a brutal identity shift. They stop being a follower and become a protagonist. Musashi also observed that courage can be trained. It grows from repeated small acts, like getting out of bed when the mind says no, having difficult conversations, or admitting mistakes without excuses. Each small internal victory builds an invisible muscle. This is the muscle that later allows you to face bigger challenges without faltering. This is self-mastery, gaining strength inside before needing it outside. And in the end, Musashi showed that fear is just a shadow, and a shadow exists only when there is light. The stronger your mind becomes, the more you realize that fear was never a blockade, but an invitation, a call to grow. And it is precisely this growth that prepares you for the next level, learning to adapt like water, changing forms as needed, and walking the path of the 5 rings, which opens the next stage of this journey. Musashi understood that no one reaches self-mastery by trying to live the same way all the time. He said life demands different forms for different moments, which is why he structured his teachings in the 5 rings. Each element represents a mental state, a strategy, a rhythm. Just as a warrior must adapt to the terrain, a modern person must adapt to life's changing scenarios. This adaptability is the core of the warrior mindset. The first ring, Earth, represents the foundation. It is where you build solid, repetitive fundamentals. Today, this means creating simple habits like waking up at the same time, studying daily, or training without skipping days. It is in Earth that inner discipline is born. Is it boring? Sometimes. But it is the boring things that shape character. Without foundations, any wind knocks you down. With foundations, even storms become training. The second ring, water, brings flexibility. Musashi explained that water takes the shape of any container without losing its essence. In practice, this means adjusting your strategy when something doesn't go as planned. If your study routine doesn't work in the morning, shift it to the evening. If a business strategy fails, adjust quickly. The ability to bend without breaking is a crucial part of mental toughness. The third ring, fire, symbolizes courage and intensity. Musashi said there are moments when you must go straight to the point, act fast, burn hesitation. This applies to difficult decisions, ending toxic relationships, changing jobs, cutting draining connections. The fire of this ring pushes you forward, even without guarantees. This fire awakens a deep identity shift. You see yourself taking actions you once feared. The fourth ring, wind, represents understanding others. Musashi studied different schools to understand rivals and opponents. Today, this means understanding perspectives, social patterns, personalities, and behaviors. It's the entrepreneur studying competitors, the professional analyzing the market, the leader understanding their team. Seeing the wind is seeing beyond. It sharpens your strategic ability, a clear mark of self-mastery. The fifth ring, void, is the deepest. Musashi said that in the void lies intuitive clarity, that perception born from silence. It's when you act without effort because mind and action are aligned. This sensation arises when you live in constant training, repetition, and awareness. In modern life, it appears when someone starts making better decisions without even thinking. It is the peak of inner discipline functioning automatically. These 5 elements aren't separate stages. They coexist like layers. Earth gives balance, water gives movement, fire gives courage, wind gives vision, and void gives wisdom. When a person understands how to use each one at the right moment, life begins to flow with less resistance. They stop living to put out fires and start living to create paths. This is the warrior mindset applied to real life. For Musashi, living without adaptability is like fighting every battle with the same technique. Sooner or later, someone defeats you. He knew every situation demands a different response. If life knocks you down, use earth to stand up. If life pressures you, use water to bend. If life freezes you, use fire to act. If life confuses you, use wind to observe. If life overwhelms you, use void to breathe. This dynamic develops mental toughness, far more than motivational speeches. When someone begins seeing the world through the 5 rings, they stop being reactive and become strategic. They realize they don't need to fight every battle with brute force. Some are won with patience, others with vision, others with courage. This understanding creates layers of emotional maturity that are rare. The mind stops working on autopilot and starts working with intention. That's where transformation begins, the true identity shift. And it is this strategic view, built element by element, that prepares you to understand Musashi's next teaching. The mind wins before the sword. In studying his duels and mastering psychology, you discover how Musashi defeated enemies before the fight even started. And that leads directly into the next topic. Musashi knew that a duel began long before the blade left the sheath. He understood that the mind wins first, and only then the body follows. This vision aligns perfectly with the modern concept of mental toughness. Those who maintain emotional clarity control the scenario. In his duels, Musashi studied the enemy even before approaching. He observed breathing, posture, impatience, ego. He knew that the real fight was psychological. The legendary duel with Sasaki Kojiro shows this perfectly. Musashi arrived late on purpose, deeply unsettling Kojiro's emotions. Kojiro entered the fight inflamed, impatient, eager to prove something. Musashi, on the other hand, was calm like a still lake. This mental difference determines outcomes even today. A professional who enters a meeting anxious loses advantage. One who arrives centered displays self-mastery without saying a word. Musashi also manipulated rhythm, an invisible yet brutal technique. He sped up when the enemy expected slowness, and slowed down when the enemy expected impact. This broke mental patterns and created openings. Today, it's like surprising someone with an unexpected decision, taking control of a difficult conversation, or presenting a solution before the problem explodes. That's the warrior mindset in action. He understood that predictability is weakness. That's why he trained multiple forms of attack and defense, always varying. Today, this means not depending on a single skill, a single source of income, a single strategy. A person who learns negotiation, communication, problem-solving, and continuous learning becomes mentally unbeatable. Strategic diversity is a powerful expression of inner discipline. Musashi also used the environment to his advantage, fighting against the sun, choosing the terrain, positioning himself strategically. All of this was part of the battle. Today, this is as simple as reorganizing your environment to boost your performance. Putting your phone away, adjusting lighting for focused work, keeping your desk clean, placing visible reminders of your goals. Small changes in the environment create big changes in behavior. Another crucial point was emotional reading. Musashi identified fear, arrogance, hesitation, and exploited these signals. Today, this appears in negotiations, interviews, and important conversations. When you notice the other person is insecure, you can guide the situation with gentleness. When you notice arrogance, you maintain firmness. This emotional sensitivity creates competitive advantage and is a refined layer of self-mastery. He also understood that calmness is deadlier than fury. A calm opponent sees opportunities that an enraged one never will. Musashi trained until calmness became his armor. Today, practicing conscious breathing, meditation, or simply sitting in silence for 2 minutes before a conversation builds this internal weapon. Whether in a presentation or an argument, the calm mind wins. Musashi showed that a duel is never just physical. He knew that someone who enters a conflict trying to prove something has already lost half the battle. But someone who enters simply to act, without internal drama, without expectation, without anxiety, rarely fails. This applies to interviews, entrepreneurship, relationships, and negotiations. Emotional detachment creates clarity, and clarity creates power. This is the essence of mental toughness. The most fascinating aspect of Musashi's strategy is that he always attacked at the moment the enemy least expected. He broke logic, escaped patterns, surprised. Today, this means stepping out of common behavior, starting earlier than others, studying when others rest, training when they quit, speaking when they stay silent, staying silent when they speak. This behavior triggers a deep identity shift. You begin operating at another level. And this strategic vision, this ability to win battles in the mind first, prepares the ground for the next teaching, the conscious path of solitude, simplicity, and detachment. Because after defeating external opponents, Musashi faced an even greater challenge, conquering himself through the Dakodo. Musashi wrote the Dakodo at the end of his life, in complete serenity. He knew that after so many battles, the greatest one was living honestly with oneself. The way of walking alone is not isolation, it is clarity. He discovered that the greatest strength appears when you no longer depend on external validation to exist. This understanding marks a turning point in self-mastery. A person stops being pushed by others' opinions and begins walking from their own center. The first principle, accept everything as it is, teaches that resisting the inevitable is a waste of energy. Today, this means stopping the fight against facts and starting to act on what you can actually change. Someone who accepts a layoff with maturity, for example, doesn't waste time complaining. They use the impact as fuel to reinvent their career. This attitude reveals true mental toughness because it accepts pain without despair. Self-sufficiency, another principle of the Dakodo, is not about living alone. It's about not being emotionally dependent on the world to feel worthy. When someone becomes self-sufficient, they enter a deep identity shift. They stop being guided by chaos and start making decisions based on what they believe. This applies to relationships, work, friendships, finances. Those who are self-sufficient live with their feet firmly on the ground. They do not collapse at every gust of wind. Musashi also said, "Do not seek pleasure for pleasure's sake." He wasn't against happiness. He was against emotional slavery. Today, this can be seen in addictions to notifications, food, shopping, or endless entertainment. When someone reduces these excesses, they discover something important. Silence is liberating. And in that silence, inner discipline is born. That calm strength that allows you to choose what truly matters without impulsiveness. Another principle is not grieving separation. Musashi understood that everything in life is movement. People arrive, people leave. Cycles open, cycles close. When you learn to accept this with a steady heart, you develop rare emotional maturity. It's like understanding that a childhood friend may walk a different path, or that a relationship may end without destroying your essence. This lightness is part of the warrior mindset. The simplicity of the Dakodo is brutal. Musashi defended owning little, not as a modern minimalist philosophy, but as a symbol of detachment. The less you need, the freer you are. Today, applying this can be as simple as cleaning your desk, removing unnecessary objects, reducing your list of desires. This practice removes mental weight. People realize they were carrying things that did nothing for their evolution. Living with purpose is another central principle. Musashi never wasted energy on anything that didn't strengthen his mind, spirit, or technique. In the modern world, this means investing time in real skills, learning to write better, studying for professional growth, caring for your body, nurturing healthy relationships. Every intentional action adds points to your self-mastery, shaping your identity like metal shaped in fire. The Dakodo also teaches acting without depending on external rewards. Musashi didn't train to receive applause. He trained because the training itself was the path. Today, this looks like studying daily, maintaining physical training, or working on personal projects without waiting for recognition. Those who act without needing approval develop powerful psychological independence. They become unshakable because no praise or silence can manipulate them. Another important point is emotional detachment from the past. Musashi knew that too much nostalgia paralyzes. He preferred facing the present with full attention. This is crucial for those seeking an identity shift, letting go of old labels and stories that no longer serve them. The past teaches, but it cannot command. Life only moves forward for those who move with it. In the end, the way of walking alone is not about loneliness. It is about depth. When you learn to live without excess, without dependency, without illusions, your spirit strengthens. And this inner strengthening prepares the ground to apply everything in modern life, where battles are not fought with swords but with habits, distractions, and choices. And it is exactly this that opens the path to the next topic, bringing ancient wisdom into the practical reality of today. The greatness of Musashi's teachings lies in the fact that they don't belong to the past. They work today, perhaps even better than before. In a world full of distractions, his clarity is almost a superpower. The first modern application is simple yet powerful. Create daily habits with intention. Read every day. Train even for 15 minutes. Study something useful. These small commitments naturally build inner discipline, almost without effort. Another direct application is embracing discomfort. Instead of running from uncomfortable situations, Musashi would walk toward them. This applies to difficult conversations, heavy decisions, and personal changes. Those who expose themselves to discomfort grow in silence. A simple cold shower, an early morning walk, or starting a project without knowing everything already develops mental toughness. The more you practice, the less fear controls you. Avoiding dependence on others' approval is one of the most urgent applications. Today, validation is addictive. Likes, messages, comments. The mind gets lost trying to please the entire world. Musashi would cut that at the root. He would live with purpose, not expectation. You can apply this by reducing social media consumption, filtering who truly matters, and making decisions based on what strengthens your identity shift, not what brings empty applause. Adaptability, taught in the Book of Five Rings, is another indispensable modern tool. People who know how to change pace, adjust strategies, and reinvent themselves have an enormous advantage. This applies to work, finances, relationships, and even physical training. If something fails, change the approach. If something locks, adjust the path. Flexibility generates strength, and that strength fits perfectly into the warrior mindset. Another extremely practical modern application is mastering your attention. Musashi would not tolerate distractions, and if he lived today, he would likely train focus the same way he trained swordsmanship. Turning off notifications, setting phone schedules, creating distraction-free study or workspaces. These are powerful mental training techniques. Doing this daily builds a rare form of self-mastery, difficult to imitate. Applying Musashi also means living with purpose, which means choosing carefully what you consume. Books, conversations, content, people. Instead of filling your mind with noise, you nourish it with knowledge. Good reading? Start with the Book of Five Rings. Then go to Meditations by Marcus Aurelius or Atomic Habits to understand modern habits. This kind of mental nutrition creates depth and emotional protection. To apply Musashi is also to act before the perfect moment. He would never wait for the best sword, the best terrain, the best chance. He used what he had. Today, this means starting a business with the phone you already have, training with the weights you own, studying with the time available. Imperfect action moves life forward. Perfectionism paralyzes. Choosing to act triggers a powerful identity shift. You become someone who does. Another valuable application is learning to observe people. Musashi studied opponents. You can study behavior. At work, observe who grows fast and understand why. In finances, study those who invest well. In relationships, observe communication patterns. It's not about comparison, it's about learning. This ability sharpens your perception, making you more strategic and less reactive. It's self-mastery working through awareness. Avoiding excess is also essential. Musashi lived with little because he knew that those who need too much are always fragile. Today, this might mean reducing unnecessary expenses, controlling impulse purchases, simplifying routines, cleaning mental and physical clutter. The less noise you carry, the more space there is for focus, strength, and growth. This simplicity fuels your inner discipline. And finally, Applying Musashi today means understanding that the real battle is always internal. Every habit, every choice, every reaction is a form of training. It is the battle against the old you, the one who procrastinates, who fears, who hesitates. And this understanding leads us to the last point of this journey, the most important victory of all, the one that happens inside you, every single day. And that will be the center of the next topic. Musashi knew that the greatest of all battles did not happen on the field, but inside the mind. He taught that every thought is a sword, every decision is a strike, and every reaction reveals the level of self-mastery someone has achieved. The inner war is silent, but it is where life is won or lost. Those who conquer themselves become unbeatable before the world. Those who lose to themselves win no battle, not even the smallest ones. The true fight is against procrastination, fear, doubt, ego, emotional laziness. Musashi fought all of this with daily training. Today, someone fights these enemies by creating micro-habits, getting up on the first alarm, reading for a few minutes, keeping promises, doing what they said they would do. Each small victory reinforces inner discipline. Each consistent act weakens the fragile voice that tries to pull you backward. Musashi said that today's victory is over yesterday's version of you. This idea is powerful because it removes comparison with others and refocuses attention where it matters, your own growth. When someone starts competing with themselves, they activate a deep identity shift. Suddenly, the focus stops being about proving something to the world and becomes about building something inside. And this inner change transforms everything around: career, relationships, self-esteem, choices. The inner battle requires recognizing your weaknesses with honesty. Musashi did this daily, examining his posture, his mistakes, his intentions. In modern life, this can be done with a simple practice: writing down what you need to improve in a notebook. Communication, focus, punctuality, habits. Acknowledging weaknesses is an act of courage, and courage is one of the pillars of mental toughness. Those who run from themselves never grow. Another crucial point is emotional control. Musashi did not allow uncontrolled emotions to make decisions for him. Today, this means learning to breathe before responding, understanding triggers, avoiding unnecessary explosions, and maintaining mental firmness in tense situations. It's like a modern samurai who knows that the sharpest blade is not in his hand, but in his mind. This ability is the heart of the warrior mindset. The inner battle also involves accepting full responsibility for your own life. Musashi never blamed circumstances. He assumed control. Today, this means stopping the excuses: lack of time, other people, past events. Taking responsibility places you in the driver's seat. And once you sit in that seat, you begin directing your life with intention. This attitude is a visible marker of self-mastery. Musashi understood that the mind needs nourishment. He studied schools, read texts, observed, and sought to expand his knowledge. The modern version of this is carefully choosing what you consume: books that strengthen the mind, uplifting content, meaningful conversations. Atomic Habits, Mindset, Meditations, The Book of Five Rings, all excellent allies. Feeding the mind is a practical way to strengthen your inner discipline. Another aspect of the inner battle is silence. Musashi valued silence because in it the mind organizes itself. Today, this means turning off your phone for a few minutes, going for a walk alone, meditating, or simply sitting quietly observing your thoughts. Silence reveals much. It shows what you need to change, what you need to abandon, and what you need to reinforce. Those who don't listen to their own silence end up listening to the noise of the world. The true battle also involves consistency. Musashi didn't train when he felt like it. He trained because it was necessary. Today, this means continuing even when motivation disappears, and it always disappears. Continuing to study, to train, to build, to show up. This consistency creates such a solid growth line that eventually it becomes impossible to regress. It is living proof of mental toughness working daily. And in the end, Musashi knew that mastering yourself is mastering life. That is the victory that opens all the others. When you control your mind, your focus, your emotions, and your actions, the external world stops being a threat, and becomes a field of possibilities. And it is with this mentality that we enter the final stage, transforming all this knowledge into a powerful, provocative conclusion that inspires real action. Now that you've walked through each principle, each inner battle, and each lesson left by Musashi, the question that truly matters is simple. What are you going to do with all of this? Because knowledge without action becomes nothing more than extra weight in the mind. But when you put it into practice, even the smallest step, a door opens. And it's in that first step that your self-mastery begins to become real, not just a beautiful idea. Pause for a moment and reflect. What habit do you need to build today? What fear do you need to face? What distraction do you need to cut? The answers are already inside you. And Musashi believed that true wisdom is the one that awakens action. So pick one point and start now. Not tomorrow. Not when you feel like it. Not when everything is perfect. Start today, exactly as you are. Do you realize that life changes when you change? That your results change when your identity changes? That your relationships change when your discipline changes? Everything you heard here is not distant philosophy. It's a manual for practical transformation. But nothing changes until the moment you decide to change. And maybe that decision is happening right now, as you feel that discomfort pushing you forward. So let me ask you, who do you want to be 6 months from now? A warrior forged by discipline, clarity, and focus, or the same character repeating the same patterns as always? The battle is internal, and it starts now. You have everything you need to win, and you know it. Now all that's missing is action. All that's missing is taking the first strike against the old you trying to keep you small. If this content awakens something inside you, courage, restlessness, clarity of what needs to be done, don't let it fade. Stay on this path. Keep strengthening your mind, your focus, and your discipline. To continue evolving, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. That way, you'll keep receiving content that will help you stay on track, grow from the inside out, and master your own life. The path has begun. Now it's in your hands.